Um, so this way, we're going to currently kind of just deviate slightly from the current topic. So this week, I'd like to discuss hadith regarding social media. Now, social media is something which is really prevalent in our society. Nearly everybody has a mobile phone. Nearly everybody has an iPad. And all this is to do with social media, whether you go on YouTube, whether you go on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all this is to do with social media. And nearly everybody's indulged. I mean, now you find 5-year-olds who actually, use the iPad and social media. So what we need to know is what is the ruling regarding social media, and are there any hadith which speak about social media, which they are, and I'd like to cover as many as I can from the 40 hadith regarding social media. So hadith number one is in Sahih al-Bukhari. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, he opens up his book with the first hadith, innamal a'malu bin niyat, that all actions are judged by intention. So each man will have what he intended. And then there's the long hadith there, and you can see that on the screen, which is narrated by Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Muslim rahmatullah alayhi. So what that basically means is that Islam doesn't forbid a person from using a phone. Islam doesn't forbid a person from using social media. However, if a person is using social media, if a person is using his phone or her phone for a reason to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for a reason where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may become angry, then basically the hadith comes into play, innamal a'malu bin niyat, actions are judged according to intentions. So a person would then be sinful. Just like, for example, and I'm not saying having a TV in the house is allowed. I'm not saying that. But if a person did have a TV in the house and was watching a program where there's nothing there which contradicts Islamic principles, then that, for that purpose only, it could be permissible. For example, watching the news, but there's nothing there which goes against Islam. But if a person is watching the TV or using the mobile phone, it's similar, or using the iPad for a reason to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then again, actions are judged according to intentions, and a person could be sinful. And on the other hand, if a person is using the iPad or using the phone to listen to Quran Kareem, to listen to a Qari on YouTube, for example, to listen to Hadith, to listen to a lecture, then on the contrary, a person would be rewarded for this action. So that's the first hadith regarding social media. The second hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, he who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the last day must either speak good or remain silent. فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. So again, regarding social media, I know many people, they have this trend nowadays to record videos on TikTok, to record videos on Instagram, to record videos on Snapchat. So if displaying and recording those videos and then displaying on social media is for a good purpose, it doesn't have to always be an Islamic purpose, a good purpose, and then in that case, it's fine. A person has spoken with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure in mind. But if it's, for example, recording videos of music, recording something which goes against Islamic principles, then recording and sharing such ideas and such videos on social media would not be allowed. Yes, okay. Right, just a minute. Right, I'm hoping everybody can see that now. I think there was slightly a technical glitch there. Okay. Right, yeah, so that was hadith number 2. So that's another foundation for social media. If you are to record good things, again, whether you have a YouTube channel, you have an Instagram account, or you have Snapchat, whatever it is, it should be done for the purpose of good instead of wasting time. Because in them circumstances, being silent and staying silent would be better than recording anything on social media or even saying anything on social media. The third hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentions to the nearest meaning, from the excellence of a person's Islam is that he leaves what does not concern him. Nowadays and also in the past, a person should have this habit in him or herself to mind their own business. What a person is doing in their own life, what they're doing next door, what they're doing in their own household, what my friends doing at home, I don't know, whoever, any other person, what they're doing in their own life is none of your business. It only becomes your business when you know for sure that they're doing something against Islam, they're doing something against the wishes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you have the right to advise them. You don't have the right to enforce anything, you have the right to advise them, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran Kareem, La ikraha fi din, there is no compulsion in religion. So you come across a lot of things which don't concern you and may be interesting. So as it says on the screen, the trick is to keep yourself from getting involved in them, because sometimes getting involved could lead to arguments, could lead to riba and backbiting. So the best thing is that to stay away from such things which have no concern with yourself, with ourselves. The fourth hadith. The Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith where he says, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Now, an example I would give is, for example, you are sharing something on social media, you're sharing something on YouTube, you're sharing something on Instagram, Snapchat, and very prevalent again nowadays is on WhatsApp. And you know that by sharing such news on social media, that would degrade my Muslim brother or my Muslim sister, then that should not be shared. Because the hadith says, now whatever you like for yourself, you should like for your Muslim brother or Muslim sister. If you don't like it for yourself, then you should not be doing the same for your Muslim brother or Muslim sister. So hence it says on the screen, treat others how you want them to be treated in all online interactions. So you have a message, you have a certain email, text, or message. Use this rule. Would you like it to be forwarded for yourself? If not, then you should not be forwarding it for somebody else as well on their behalf, or sometimes without their knowledge. And that's where many arguments actually happen. Many arguments happen due to sharing content on social media which should not be shared in essence. Hadith number 5. The example of good company and that of bad company is that of an owner of musk and of an ironsmith. So basically the hadith is mentioning, if you were to go into a shop which sells perfume, when you exit the shop or when you exit the mall, wherever it is, some kind of scent will remain on your body. And on the contrary, if you were to go to a blacksmith or an ironsmith. You know, some the ironsmiths, when they make iron, when they make use those metals to make iron, the blackness of the fire and the blackness of the fire and the ashes, they actually touch the clothing. So when you come out of that shop, for example, you would come out in such a state where you would have some blackness on your clothing. So basically, the point here is that whatever type of company you have, you will be influenced by that company, whether you like it or not. So we check our feed, we check Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, dozens of times a day. And whatever you have in your feed, whether it's Snapchat or whether it's YouTube as well. I mean, nowadays they have all kind of automatic feed. You know, they have all kind of automatic feed on Instagram, Snapchat, even YouTube now. They have something called YouTube Shorts, for example. So whatever you're interested in and whatever you subscribe to, that's what kind of feed you will receive in your social media. So it's about being very careful about what we subscribe to on social media also. Another hadith, the next one mentions a man is upon the religion of his close friends, so he should consider whom he makes his friend. A very important hadith. Just like we have physical friends, we also have online friends. And online friends will influence you just like physical friends may influence you. If you have friends which are going the wrong way, or they're influenced, or they are indulging in the wrong acts, then to a certain extent, you may also indulge in the wrong acts, following in their footsteps. And this also applies to social media, especially nowadays when you're maybe playing on the Xbox, PS5, if you're playing on, playing a game, whatever kind of console it is, you have online friends. And again, you have all types of social media. So whatever they do as friends, whether it's good or bad, it will have an influence on yourself. So the key is know the value system, ethics, morals, and character of those who you associate online. So it's about making sure you have sensible friends online, so that if they are to do something bad, then you can avoid them, or you can block them online so they don't influence your character. The next hadith is regarding moderation. The hadith mentions, love whom you love moderately. Perhaps he will become hated to you someday, and hate the one for whom you have hated moderately. Perhaps he will become beloved to you someday. Again, I think this is one of the most important hadith, is about don't indulge yourself too much with friends. So we're talking about friends here, not family. When in terms of family, the more association you have with family in a positive manner, it's rewardable. Being good to family is a source of reward, even though nowadays we try and avoid ourselves from family. I mean, if you're avoiding yourself from family is due to arguments, I'm not talking about mom and dad here. Associating yourself with mom and dad as much as possible is very important. But if you're disassociating yourself from other people, then if it's friends, then that's good. And if it's family, then again, it depends on who you're disassociating yourself with. But again, like I said, the more time you spend with family, the more reward there is. And there is a hadith in that effect, that you stay and you associate yourself with family as much as possible. Yeah, regarding friends, you need to be very clever and associate yourself with those only who give you some type of benefit. Any friend that does not give you any type of worldly or religious benefit is not worth having as a friend. So moderation in friendship, because sometimes those that you hate as friends could become a friend later on, and obviously you don't want to have such enmity that later on that friend actually remembers, or those friends who are your friends, those friends who are your friends become an enemy later on, or become somebody you hate later on. That is possible. So that's why moderation in friendship, moderation in enmity is extremely important. So an obvious meaning here about moderation in friendship, a deeper lesson here would be one about moderation in sharing. Be cautious regarding what you share. Again, you may have read on the news and on social media that many people have their pictures shared without permission. And obviously, it's better to be safe than sorry. Once the picture has been shared, removing it from social media or the internet becomes a very mountainous and a very difficult task. So moderation, whether it be in social media or whether it be anything, everything, when it has moderation, beautifies it. An example in the Hadith where the Prophet also mentions, he says, I think it's to the nearest effect where Prophet says, "Khairul amali ma dima alayh." That the best of actions are those which may be done they're done in moderation, but they're done consistently. So consistency is key, and also moderation is key. The reward of good friendship. Those who love each other for the sake of my majesty shall be upon podiums of light, and they will be admired by the prophets and the martyrs. And there is a hadith which mentions that one of those people who will be under the shade of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be those people who had friendship for the sake of Allah ta'ala. So if you do have friendship with anybody, if it's for the sake of Allah ta'ala, for the sake that that person may guide me on the right path, he may take me for namaz, he may encourage me to keep roza, he may encourage me to pay zakat, he or she may encourage me to go for hajj once I am able, then that is good friendship, and that friendship will inshallah one day take you to paradise and also earn you the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talk a lot about the evils of bad company, but it is important to emphasize the reward of good company as well. And again, this applies to social networking, having good friendship on social media so that you receive good messages and you are protected from any vice that takes place on social media. This hadith, regarding this hadith, is that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and even now, I think back in countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, where there isn't much emphasis on social media, there isn't much technology, people would just sit outside in random places and talk to each other. So the Prophet ﷺ, he actually gave guidance on how that should also be done. So the Prophet ﷺ said, beware of sitting on the roadways. They said, we have the alternative, and that is where we sit and talk. He said, okay, if you insist and you decide to sit, if you insist on sitting there, then give the roadway its rights. They said, what are the rights of the roadway? He said, lowering your gaze, refraining from harming others, returning greetings and enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil. And today I would say that is the equivalent of browsing or even going onto social media. These aspects should be borne in mind. that if something which is against Islamic principles takes place, then you lower your gaze. You refrain from harming others. So again, sharing aspects which are not pleasing to anybody, or they go against Islamic principles. And again, if somebody does do salam on social media, you reply either verbally or by writing wa alaikum salam. And again, if anything goes against Islamic principles on social media, you actually advise your friends or your family that this is something which is against Islamic principles. So in essence, this hadith lays down a number of important rules, all of which are directly applicable to social networking. Lowering the gaze is a particularly important advice. And this again can avoid a person from traps on the internet. Having good good interaction with others, and also greeting each other with salam when and where possible. This, I think, again, is a very important hadith about hiding one's sin. Unfortunately, nowadays, let's say, for example, a person went to the cinema last night, and then the next day, what they say to their friends is they boast to their friends that I went to the cinema. So basically, the sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hid from others, this person is exposing his sins. Again, maybe he did something wrong. He went on a wrong site on social media, which displeased Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he exposes his sin or her sin to everybody else on the next day. This is a very major kind of sin. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ mentions, he says, all of my followers have their sins pardoned except those who publicize them. An example of this is that a man who commits a sin at night, and even though Allah Ta'ala screens it from the public, he comes in the morning and says, I committed such and such sin last night. He spent the night screened by his Lord, and in the morning he removes Allah's Ta'ala's screen from himself. And I remember reading in one of the commentaries of Muslim Sharif, I think it's written by Mufti Taqi Usmani, Damat Barakatuh, when he mentions that a person will come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. He'll be given account, he'll be giving account of his deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him count all the sins that he's done or she has done. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will then say to that person that for every sin that you've committed, I will change it into a reward. And all his sins will become a reward, and he'll be given entry into paradise. And in the commentary, Mufti Saab, he writes that this, one of the reasons may be that when he did commit a sin, he did not publicize them in public. He did not tell anybody that he committed this sin, which doesn't mean that you commit a sin and then do not tell anybody. What it means is that you avoid sin as much as possible. And if it's done even by mistake, then it should not be publicized. Okay, so these are the first 10 hadith which I have gone through this Sunday. I'm going to stop here for now, and inshallah we'll continue next week with the rest of the 30. Hopefully I'll finish all 30 next week. So does anybody have any questions?